Hi everyone, this is Starpath Academy, and I wanted to talk about something that might not be discussed on the mainstream media or anywhere else that I have seen, but should be thought about in the situation of invaded Ukraine, but also any country that is experiencing war, which is the things that are committed under the fog of war. So, as they say, truth is the first casualty of war. That means nobody really knows what's happening, but also who started what and why, right? And eventually will be decided by the winners, or what becomes history. So, what I want to talk about is that in every country, but especially some of these European countries or North African countries, which were divided up by rulers somewhere in Western Europe, UK most likely, or France, just based on numbers or lines on the map, or sometimes just drawing straight lines in the case of Africa. These countries have a lot of minorities, ethnic minorities, which for you may look the same, but in between them, they have a lot of grievances. For instance, just the very obvious of Russians being in the current Ukraine, also Romanians being in the current Ukraine, Hungarians being in Ukraine, Hungarians in Romania, Germans in Poland used to be, and so on and so forth. So many small minorities that were stuck on one or the other side of the border. Now they do tend to get along somewhat, right, in good times. However, when bad times are approaching, these are not good situations to be in, right? So unfortunately, a lot of old grievances are brought up in these times, and let's just say militias that form to quote unquote defend the country or defend the province or the minority or whatever, they become very militaristic and could take their own version of justice on whatever happens. So that could mean, and these are just speculations, I don't have anywhere confirmed this. However, you could imagine, or one could imagine, that Ukrainian troops could be roaming in Ukraine while the war is happening, and they may not be able to face the Russian troops directly, but they could hunt down Russian minorities. This has happened again and again, not necessarily Russia or Ukraine, but if you take a look at the Second World War history, how many problems there were, how many court cases there were after wars, who's not a war criminal, and so on. So I just want to mention this, that because if you're a minority in a country, may that be ethnic, racial, whatever, religious, whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is that you have to be aware of the animosities or hatred that could be going against your special group, or maybe your group has some hatred against some other group, whatever. The reasoning here is that if you are aware that these things are there during war times, these resurface very, very fast. So you could imagine what could be happening, right? So be aware of your own situation, your own surrounding, your own political situation in the country you live in, because this might be a much bigger problem than an invading army. The invading army is usually preoccupied, well, if they are, moral at least, they are preoccupied with taking over the country, taking over the capital, and doing that. There are some bad things that happen after that, but during the war times, usually that is what's happening. And it's usually not the biggest concern if you're unarmed or if you're just trying to survive or escape with your family. Yes, it can be very bad, but technically you're not the target. However, these subgroups or groups that are roaming around could be targeting you. And I believe these are much more serious than people make it out to be. So if you probably heard that in Ukraine there are some extremists. I think on both sides, not just one. However, you can imagine that one extremist group could be hunting the minority group of ethnically Russian people or ethnically Hungarian people. I don't think this is a major concern right now, but as the war goes on for a long and longer period, these could be pretty serious. But, also that could be reflected in other countries. So if you're living in a totally different country other than Ukraine, you should still pay attention to this. Okay, so that I wanted to tell you because most likely nobody else will be talking about this. Thanks.